It's shaping up as a stellar season in the Big 12 with tons of exciting games, intriguing matchups, not knowing who the real favorite is going to be from week to week. But in this world of a college football playoff and selection process, it is not a stellar situation for the Big 12 moving forward. MarkRogersTV looking at the Kansas State-Oklahoma game. We watched it, about 12 or 13 hours ago at the start of the college football day, and our thoughts about the Sooners and the Wildcats moving forward. What a performance by Bill Snyder's team, going to Norman for the second consecutive time, meaning the second time in 3 years, defeating Oklahoma. And for the Sooners, one of the big favorites to make the college football playoff. So we saw the polls the entire offseason from the media and the fans. And what we constantly saw was, of course, Florida State because of the easy schedule, because of all the talent on that roster taking up one spot. A lot of people had Oregon. The Big Ten was pretty much split between Ohio State and Michigan State. Then Braxton Miller got hurt, and it was swaying toward Michigan State. Of course, the SEC would either have one team for sure or two possibly, and we could see that play out. But the thought was Alabama and Auburn would be in the mix, and possibly Georgia. For the Big 12, Oklahoma carried the banner. Preseason number 3 or number 4, depending on your service, coming off that impressive Sugar Bowl win over Alabama. So Oklahoma would be the team. We saw it last year with Michigan State and Auburn. Somebody was going to jump into the mix who didn't necessarily belong, who was not necessarily forecasted or expected to be an elite team. And we're seeing it take shape. And it's to the detriment of a very competitive and very difficult league, the Big 12. I've taken my pot shots at the Big 12 recently. The league was way under 500 the past couple of years against the other Power 5 conference leagues. But this year, the Big 12 is very entertaining. And look at the season West Virginia's putting together, very deep and playing a little bit better defense than I anticipated, i.e. Kansas State's performance at home against an Auburn team that nobody has stopped over the past year and a half. Okay, let's check this one out. Oklahoma losing a crucial game to Kansas State. The Wildcats never given enough respect, never given enough attention nationally. This is a team now with the one loss against an Auburn team that may march through the rest of the SEC Western Division schedule and make it to the SEC championship game. We shall see. But Kansas State with a one loss, and it's one of the better losses in college football to date. And Oklahoma loses this one to Kansas State. And this pretty much seals it for the Sooners unless everything breaks loose across the country in the next 5 or 6 weeks. Michael Honeycutt just had the worst day of his career. This is a kid who hit on 8 of 9 coming in for the Sooners, 24 of 27, all Big 12 selection, the all-time leader in points in Oklahoma Sooners history. Let that sink in. One of the great histories in college football, this kid, the all-time scoring leader, missed a field goal at the end of the first half. He missed the PAT that was actually blocked by Travis Britz. And then the one that would have given Oklahoma the lead after the Sooners had a 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. So Kansas State's defense stepped up big time to prevent the touchdown. And then trailing 31-30, the Sooners could have taken a 2-point lead and given the ball back to K-State with about 3:50 left on the clock. But Honeycutt missed it with 3:53 left to play. The Oklahoma defense continued to disappoint. When they needed a stop to get the ball back to Trevor Knight, they couldn't make it happen. They gave up 2 first downs. They didn't have enough timeouts to stop the clock. And despite having a huge statistical advantage in this game, Oklahoma ripped apart K-State's defense between the 20s for 533 yards to K-State's 385. 30 first downs for Oklahoma to 17 for Kansas State. But the Sooners had 2 critical turnovers. K-State was clean. No turnovers for the Wildcats. Plus, again, Honeycutt missed the PAT that was blocked. They kept the game at 31-30 for Kansas State that eventually proved to be the game winner. And then he missed the one at the end of the first half, and then the one we just mentioned that would have given Oklahoma the lead with 3:50 to play. So that's 7 points off the board for Oklahoma. Again, it was Tyler Lockett with a huge day for Oklahoma. Again, this kid is one of the underrated wide receivers in college football. If you don't see Kansas State, and we don't see them nationally that often in this day and age of 15 games on per Saturday, he caught 6 for 86 and a touchdown. Jake Waters, all due respect to Colin Klein, Jake Waters is a better all-purpose quarterback than Colin Klein. Doesn't bring the dimension in the running game, quite the dimension of Colin Klein, and he has turned into a passer that Bill Snyder can really trust in the passing game to deliver the throws. He does it with confidence. He's got the decision-making down. He does it decisively and quickly and delivers the throw in great shape. Jake Waters had an exceptional game, 15 of 23, 225 yards, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns. On the flip side for Oklahoma, Trevor Knight kind of emerged from his recent malaise to perform well for Oklahoma. He did have the 1 pick six in his own end, made a bad mistake, picked off for a touchdown by Kansas State in the first half, but other than that, shook it off and really came through. Looking for Trevor Knight's stats. They were really good, whatever they were. Don't have them here. Cody Thomas did have to come in for 1 series and led a touchdown drive. Went 2 for 2 for 17 yards, but it was mostly Alex Ross and Samaje Perine who racked up the rushing yardage in the first half for Oklahoma. But K-State, again, despite giving up 533 yards of total offense, made the stops in the red zone when they had to, forced the 2 field goal attempts that were missed. And Perine, 89 yards, and Ross had a big day for Oklahoma as well. Their rushing attack's great. They've got Sterling Shepard, who's one of the most explosive wide receivers in college football. This kid is on pace to catch passes for 1,500 yards this season. He tied the Oklahoma single-game record with 15 receptions in this one, some of them spectacular, 197 yards and a touchdown. This Perine, this is the first time I've seen him play gun to gun, watch the entire game, and he was exceptional. The statistics don't bear it out. 24 for 89. They were decent, workmanlike, with a lot of carries, but Perine is a wrecking ball. Go back and see what he did to number 37 for Kansas State. That should be on YouTube. Waters in the running game. He made defensive backs look silly, juking guys in the secondary. Can't really explain that from an Oklahoma defense that is supposed to have the makings of an elite defense, something that we saw in the latter stages of 2013. And with all those kids back, I know they lost Shannon, and they lost some other players as well, but bringing back Tapper and Stryker and all that experience in the secondary with Sanchez and all that talent, the Oklahoma defense, not nearly the force that I believed that Oklahoma would be in 2014. Another key mistake for Oklahoma, one of the 2 turnovers was the Deron Neal halfback wide receiver option play where he threw the interception in the end zone. Again, you're putting the football in the hands of a guy who doesn't know any better, doesn't read angles, misjudges the angles the defenders can take in intercepting the ball. It looks like somebody's open in the end zone, but by the time he flutters it up, they're covered, and that was a key mistake right there, and possibly bad play calling, although, again, if it would have worked, it would have been a great play call. In the end, Oklahoma loses here 31-30 to Kansas State. So, bottom line, what does this tell us? Well, Kansas State's probably not going to get the credit. They should. If they continue to win in this conference, and that means beating Baylor, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, TCU, then Kansas State needs to be taken seriously. I think a lot of the people think of what the talent is on the field based on the recruiting rankings, and we don't expect Kansas State. We expect them, they're a nice little top 25 team. But they need to be taken seriously if they can run the table. The Big 12 not in a good position here. Baylor lost. Baylor and Oklahoma held up the banner for the Big 12. Now it's possibly TCU, which has a win over Oklahoma. Of course, lost to Baylor. Right now, the Baylor Bears, if they win out, they still can most likely represent the Big 12 as conference champion, official conference champion, because there's no Big 12 championship game. West Virginia still only has one loss in conference, has the head-to-head over Baylor. What I see is Baylor, Oklahoma, TCU, West Virginia, Kansas State, even Oklahoma State, despite them looking horrible today, these teams are going to beat up on each other. I don't really expect anyone to emerge as a clear-cut team. So unfortunately, if this was a true playoff, the Big 12 would be represented, but it's not a true playoff. It's a selection process. We're trying to, or 13 people are trying to select the 4 best teams in the country, which is impossible to select them. So the Big 12 is not in good position. They're in a good position to fill a 16-team playoff with maybe 3 teams, because they're gonna finish most likely, unless again Baylor or West Virginia or TCU goes on a run, or maybe Kansas State with only the 1 loss out of conference. But most likely, we're going to finish up with a glut of 9-3 and 10-2 teams at the top of the Big 12. It's a deep conference. All those teams, I can't separate them right now. I believe that Oklahoma potentially is the best team, but they've already lost 2 games. So they're not showing it on the field. A lot of people would say Baylor, but they've lost at West Virginia, and they've got a lot of very difficult games ahead of them. Kansas State's in the best position statistically in regards to wins and losses in the conference, but people don't believe in Kansas State nationally. Difficult situation for the Big 12 in trying to represent itself in the college football playoffs. Let's talk about Oklahoma, Kansas State in the Big 12 right